Hi again guys, and welcome to yet another individual car review from a little bit back in the day from Forza Motorsport 4, and as I mentioned in the first episode of this series for the Aston Lola LMP machine, the cars that we're going to be looking at from Forza 2, 3, 4, sometimes the Horizon games even, are vehicles which are in effect unicorns because they are no longer featured in the franchise, and in my opinion some of the coolest cars to ever be featured in the Forza franchise are no longer a part of it, and this, for me at least, is most definitely one of those. And the car in question is the SSC Ultimate AERO. Now this is of course a hypercar, it's pretty much the definition of one, absolutely insane in terms of straight line performance. It was even the fastest car in the world for a short time, but still, the fastest car in the world after the Veyron has already set that record is no small task. And I may be wrong, but I do personally believe that if SSC had chosen to try and break that record by an even bigger margin, they could well have done so. It may have even held the record for longer than the Veyron Supersport did. That wouldn't surprise me at all, given the sheer power and also the sheer torque and the low weight even that the car has. And sometimes a back-to-basics approach, which is essentially what the SSC Ultimate AERO is, can work. It can really work well in your favour. Now, the Veyron is very technologically advanced, of course. It's well developed, it's well engineered, and it's a car that's easy to take for granted, and I have discussed that before. I'm not a super fan of the Veyron, but a car that's that well engineered to be big and heavy and luxurious and well made and pretty reliable, which is a rare thing for a supercar, that's impressive. To also be as fast as it is, that's no small task. In fact, it's a huge task, one of the biggest tasks you could possibly give yourself in the automotive world. The SSC Ultimate AERO takes a much more old-school approach. Now, this isn't a dumb car. It's not a dumb hypercar. It's not a supercar for hillbillies or anything like that. It's still a very clever machine. It's got a lot of thought put into it. It just takes a much more sledgehammer-to-the-face approach to performance. Just give it a huge amount of power, a huge amount of torque, make it as aerodynamic as, you know, a slab of some kind, or a Lamborghini Diablo in effect, and then just see what happens. And of course it's a lot more complex than that, but that's the kind of aura that the car gives off, just pure power. A hot rod, if you will, in some ways. And I didn't like it initially. I thought that the SSC Ultimate AERO was just a more powerful, cheesily blinged up version of a Lamborghini Diablo. Kind of like a Diablo that's been modified by some tasteless tuning house for some rapper, for instance. Now, though, I actually view the car totally differently. I actually love the SSC Ultimate AERO now, and I love it for the same reasons that I used to hate it. But not in terms of the visuals. I do like that, but I don't think it's cheesy anymore. At least not when it's tastefully done visually, like silver with silver wheels instead of just chrome all over the place. But it's a car which is actually much more impressive than you can easily give it credit for, because even just sheer power will not get the job done. You have to engineer a car very well to beat something as good as a Veyron, at least in production form, which makes it even more impressive that the Ultimate AERO did that, because it is a production car. Now, I have to say that this particular version of the Ultimate AERO is actually the one that I, to be honest, don't like as much. It's the facelifted version, and that's the reason why I don't like it. It's a pretty pointless and petty thing, but I just don't like the way the front end on this one looks. I prefer the first generation, and if you put them side by side, they are considerably different. However, this one does have far more impressive numbers, and when it comes to numbers, the Ultimate AERO is one of the most impressive cars in the game, especially given that most of these numbers are the same stock as they are when you tune it fully, because you can't do all that much to it. In terms of the engine, it's much smaller than you might expect it to be, a 6.3 litre, but that 6.3 litre V8 is putting out 1,287 horsepower and 1,112 pound-feet of torque. Now, you've got to bear in mind, that was the best part of around a decade ago that this car did that. A decade ago, and it was putting out better numbers than a Hennessy Venom GT or a Veyron Supersport, even to this day. Now, companies are finally catching up, the Koenigsegg 1-to-1, vehicles like that, even the new Hennessy Venom F5, the Bugatti Chiron, you know, they're catching up, they're getting to outperform it now, But for so many years, this was the car in terms of sheer power. But the really impressive thing about this one, which it also shares with the Venom GT, is that it's also surprisingly well weighted. It only weighs 1,247 kilos, and that is not much at all. Now, it's an R3 category vehicle, and the class is 756, so you've got quite a lot of leeway within the R3 class to get it, if you want to, all the way up to 800. So it's got a ton of potential there, but only if you tune it correctly, because a car with 1,000 horsepower per ton stock is never going to be easy to drive. And it's not easy to drive. In the real world, the Ultimate AERO is a car which will actually do 0 to 60 in 15 seconds if you just open up the throttle and just give it the beans, because it will wheel spin so much. Because of course in a car like this, you've got two huge things working against you compared to something like a Veyron. One, you don't have all-wheel drive, it's a pure rear-wheel drive car, but secondly to that, it's also lighter. And although you might think that being lighter will make it quicker, which it does, and we'll get to that in a second, off the line, having less weight can sometimes be a disadvantage, because you don't have as much weight grounding those rear tyres to put the power down. And those things put together are, well, the result. You get that rampant wheel spin, and you can see that wheel spin and trying to wheel spin pretty much through every corner in this video. And the Ultimate AERO will do that a lot. This is not a hypercar, a megacar, a supercar, whatever you want to term it as, for beginners. Definitely not. If you want to try and drive it, by all means. It costs 1 million credits, which is pretty good, and if you're looking for sheer power, not much comes close. But it's not a beginner's car, that's for sure. This is a supercar, or I would say a hypercar, for those who want a challenge. If you think that the Hennessy Venom GT is slippery, then you've got another thing coming, because the Ultimate AERO goes way beyond the Venom GT. The Venom is a faster car, ultimately, but the Ultimate AERO, no pun intended, is a monster, especially for top-end acceleration. This thing is incredible once you get enough speed to basically override the need of having grip. It goes so fast that eventually the wheel spin doesn't matter. Around corners, I actually enjoy driving this car, and I used to use it in the R3 category in a race spec form, and actually win quite a lot of races online with it if you use it on the right track, such as the Le Mans, in particular without the chicanes. It can be a worryingly dominant force with the right driver and the right tuning. So if you want to try something that I think should definitely return to Forza, it's so fun and so insanely fast, then definitely check out the Ultimate AERO on Forza 4. But for sure, it's not a car for everyone. Overall then, I'll see you guys next time, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.